I want to start by running a small test to determine if the mantra Om is a sound or if Om is a symbol of electromagnetic radiation. The ancients said three main things about Om in the Mandukya Upanishad. 1. Om is the cosmic sound. 2. Om is timeless and imperishable. And 3. Om is the source of all creation. Now, if Om is a sound, none of these make sense. Sound doesn't travel through the cosmos, sound is subject to time, and sound is absolutely not the source of all creation. However, if you think of Om as electromagnetic radiation, then all three of these make perfect sense. You start to realize that EM radiation does travel through the vacuum of space. Photons are not subject to time because of Einstein's theory of relativity, and energy plays a vital role in the creation of our universe. So with that, you tell me, is Om just another sound, or is it actually an auditory symbol of electromagnetic radiation? Now, I understand that claiming mantras are symbols of EM radiation is a bold claim to make. This not only deviates from the chronology of discovery, but it also exposes our lack of understanding in 2024 about the extent of knowledge our ancestors had about the nature of our universe. This video is an attempt to understand our ancient past better by analyzing the meaning of mantras and comparing them with the eternal truths of physics. This type of inductive reasoning is a subjective analysis, so please keep in mind that there are other interpretations of mantras apart from this. The video will be divided into 3 sections. First, I'm going to address how mantras are actually sounds in practice and separately symbols of electromagnetic radiation in theory. Second, I'm going to explore how the similarities between sound and light are integral to our understanding of the wave theory of light. With that, let's get started. First and foremost, mantras have 2 meanings. They are sounds and they are also symbols of electromagnetic radiation, and we should be careful not to confuse the two. I differentiate these 2 meanings between the practical and theoretical. Practically, mantras are sounds, and chanting them can produce meditative effects within our own mind and body. They slow down our breath, concentrate our mind on a single point, and the syllables and meanings of mantras can influence the meditative states that is achieved. Theoretically, however, the scriptures about mantras and the meaning of various rituals make a whole lot of sense if you view them as symbols of electromagnetic radiation. So that's why these rituals combine both the practical side of mantras being sounds with the theoretical side of mantras being conceptual models of electromagnetic radiation. For example, mantras energizing a yantra encourages a practice of reciting mantras and using yantras, while also symbolizing how electromagnetic radiation can energize an atom through the photoexcitation of electrons. 2. Mantras being used to visualize a yantra is an actual practice of visualization. But in a theoretical sense, it also depicts the conversion of energy to mass. 3. Different mantras having different energies is true because the meaning of a mantra may influence the type of meditative effect that's created. But maybe the varying energy levels also relates to how the frequency of electromagnetic radiation determines the amount of energy it carries because of Planck's equation, E is equal to hf. To use an analogy, I look at rituals involving mantras and the theory behind mantras as secondary colors, which are composed of a unique combination of primary colors. These primary colors are the practical meaning of mantras as sounds, the theoretical meaning of mantras as symbols of electromagnetic radiation, and we'll leave one of these colors yet to be interpreted because I'm sure there are many more interpretations that I'm not aware of. The key thing to realize here is we're dealing with the color purple, and we need to segregate the colors to truly understand the essence of these complex rituals. And this brings me to the next point. The benefits of mantras as sounds that are chanted to produce meditative effects is completely distinct from the utility of mantras as conceptual models of electromagnetic radiation. Reciting mantras lengthens the duration of breath and focuses your mind on a single point to induce meditative effects. But this is not to be confused with their role and utility as conceptual models of electromagnetic radiation. I believe the purpose of encrypting the concept of electromagnetic radiation into mantras is to communicate and preserve knowledge that was known by the ancients. The ancients did not have a centralized system like the internet to preserve their knowledge. They relied on decentralized methods to propagate knowledge through space and time. These decentralized methods involved rituals, symbols, and stories, each of which contain multiple layers of meaning within them. And this layered structure of meanings is an integral feature, as only one meaning needs to be remembered for all the encrypted information to survive through space and time. It makes the ritual, symbol, or story like a time capsule of knowledge that can propagate into the future, independent to whether it is fully understood or not. With the internet and books, we no longer rely on these decentralized methods to remember concepts of physics like the photoexcitation of electrons, mass energy conversion, and the structure of the atom. We don't need rituals and stories and symbols to preserve knowledge anymore, because the centralized internet preserves it for us. But back then, each individual and every household had a unique role in the propagation of this information into the future. They were a node in an intergenerational network that preserved something called culture, and civilization was built upon this cultural continuance. So when I think about preserving the knowledge of physics in ancient times, embedding information into symbols, rituals, and stories, which form the bedrock of society, is a no-brainer. But of course, there may be a lot of survival bias at play in my analysis. Now, moving on to the next part of this video, let's discuss the connection between sounds and electromagnetic radiation. Mantras and electromagnetic radiation are completely different, but because they share an intersection of properties, mantras are effective auditory symbols of electromagnetic radiation. In fact, the intersection of properties between sound and electromagnetic radiation is how the wave theory of light was discovered by Huygens. In the mid-17th century, it was well established that sound had a wave-like behavior, but the concept of light having a wave-like behavior was not yet established. The scientific community believed in the Newtonian particle theory of light instead. It wasn't until 1678 when Huygens observed that light shared the properties of refraction and reflection just like sound, and inferred the wave-like behavior of light because of sound's own wave-like behavior. He knew very well that sound and light were different, but the similarities between their properties inspired a breakthrough in physics, which was later confirmed with better scientific and mathematical models of light. I say this because there are many people who might be confused about how I can reasonably claim that the sound of mantras are auditory symbols of electromagnetic radiation. Here's why I think it is. Symbols are based on intersection of properties. Because the sound of mantras and electromagnetic radiation shares many properties, even though they are very different, mantras can still be used as symbols of electromagnetic radiation. To understand this better, take a look at the symbols of electromagnetic radiation we use today. They are static, oscillating lines made of ink on paper. It's not actual electromagnetic radiation, but because it captures a subset of properties, we consider them valid symbolic representations of the nature of light. Similarly, because the sound of mantra shares the wave-like behavior of electromagnetic radiation, in addition to their ability to travel through air, refract, reflect off surfaces, and carry energy, it is an appropriate symbol of electromagnetic radiation. The ancients realized these similarities just like Huygens and used mantras to communicate their knowledge about electromagnetic radiation. I want to be clear. The mantra model of electromagnetic radiation, along with the yantra model of the atom, which you can learn more about in my other videos, are conceptual models, not scientific models. Similarly, when Huygens developed the wave theory of light by comparing sound and light, it was only a conceptual model, not a scientific model. It was only after that scientific model supported his conceptual model. Generally, however, modern conceptual models are deductively derived from scientific or mathematical models. And when it comes to mantras, there is no evidence to support that the creation of yantras and mantras are based on any specific scientific or mathematical models, just like Huygens' initial wave theory of light. So let's be very clear here. The validity of the conceptual model, like the wave theory of light, which was developed before the scientific models of Fresnel and Maxwell, is established by inductively evaluating it by comparing it to the latest scientific and mathematical models available. Similarly, the mantra model of electromagnetic radiation is a conceptual model of light proposed by our ancestors without a known mathematical model. But by inductively evaluating it compared to scientific and mathematical models today, we find that it does in fact capture a good subset of properties. And so I want to end this video by sharing how sound continues to be used as a symbol of electromagnetic radiation today. Take a look at the peace bell in Hiroshima, Japan, where the atomic bomb was set off in 1945. This memorial bell is engraved with the Rutherford model of the atom, and when it's impacted by this wooden log, it creates a sound. This sound symbolizes the electromagnetic radiation that is released from an atom during the explosion of the atomic bomb. So although this bell isn't an actual atomic bomb, it symbolizes what happens during the explosion of the atomic bomb by using the Rutherford model as a symbol of an atom. And sound as an auditory symbol of electromagnetic radiation, this bell preserves an important concept in physics within a simple ritual of ringing a bell. Now, let's take this one step further. Imagine if this bell was used as a tool for meditation by focusing on the nucleus of the atom engraved on the bell with Ratika and feeling the reverberations of its sound. The bell could create a powerful meditative effect. So now the bell has two meanings. One, it continues to be a symbolic representation of the release of energy from an atom, but two, it's also this practical tool for meditation. And if you take this one step further and fast forward thousands of years and say, well, the bell survived through time and the practice of meditating around the bell is still in practice, the symbolic meaning of the bell was forgotten. No one remembered why the bell was created in the first place. No one remembered how the bell's engravings were rooted in essential truths of physics. And the symbols that this future civilization used to describe atoms and electromagnetic radiation completely changed. So now the question remains, even though the symbols are different from what this future civilization uses, is the Rutherford model still a symbolic representation of an atom? And can the sound created by the bell still be considered an auditory symbol of electromagnetic radiation? It was intended for that purpose, but will this future civilization accept it? That is the question.